What we see in the world today, wars in the Middle East, war in Ukraine, and there are so many other wars that are not on the news. War is happening because our functional consciousness, the best nation is in the imagination of the pure eternal soul, not the imagination of the mind. So the real fight that we need to fight, and not each other, is the fight of lust, anger, greed, envy, jealousy, madness, illusion. From lust, anger arises. From anger, delusion of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is gone, the game is over.
American politics have always been interesting, and the United States of America has, since World War II, we were kind of looked at as like the heroes and the saviors, but since then we've committed like many atrocities and gone to war with many different countries, most recently decimating the Middle East in many regards, and we live in an interesting bubble where, we're kind of looked at like G.I. Joe, like the all-American heroes, and there's a lot of good things about America, 100%, but we cause a lot of wars, and we have right now specifically a lot of politicians warmongering. Most every candidate up there right now is saying they're pro-Ukraine war, down with Russia. Whether you're on this side or that side, it's still like you're still pro-war. Then the Israel thing that's going on with Palestine, it's either you're pro-Israel or pro-Palestine. There's still like this topic around war, and people are like choosing sides. Let's go in depth and talk for as long as you want about the current state of politics and one of the things that seems to be powering our government, which is war. What's the deal, man, with these crazy people? Are they insane?
We live in a time right now where there's a lot of insanity, and it's not going to get any better anytime soon, because there has to be a revolution of consciousness. Without upgrading our operational consciousness, we're going to continue to be at war with somebody. What we see in the world today, wars in the Middle East, war in Ukraine, and there are so many other wars that are not on the news. But there's war in the East, there's war in the West, there's war up north, and there's war down south. It's just the nature of human species when their functional level of consciousness is based on I, me, and mine. When our consciousness is functioning on these three levels of identity, I, me, and mine, there's going to be a lot of wars. So therefore, we study in the ancient wisdom texts the importance of upgrading our consciousness. And when we upgrade our consciousness, there is no war. Upgrading our consciousness means unity, celebration of life, celebration of diversity, celebration of love, community. This is what the sages have been talking about. Even when you study the teachings of Jesus Christ, he talks about these principles of community, family, unity. He is not a proponent of wars. War is happening because our functional consciousness is very low, and we need to collectively do something to upgrade our consciousness and get out of this platform of I, me, and mine. This is my country, those are my people, I support this group because they speak our language, because we have trade with them, whatever reasons we find to connect it to I, me, and mine. So this is where the problem is. It's a fundamental problem of consciousness that is degraded. That's why there is wars everywhere. And we all have the opportunity as citizens of the free world to try and rise up and say, there is more than just fighting these wars. And who are we fighting for? What are we fighting for? So these are fundamental questions that everyone can ask themselves.
I saw an interesting meme, and it said, and I just want you to kind of play on this one I'm about to tell you. It said, the greatest nation is the imagination. What do you think about that? Pertaining to what we were just talking about, wars and nation, the greatest nation is the imagination.
We have to understand what is imagination, who's imagining it. If the soul is imagining a world where everyone is happy, everyone is filled with love, that's a great world to live in. But if the mind is imagining, the mind will gravitate towards lower aspects of sensory gratification. So yes, the best nation is an imagination of the pure eternal soul, not the imagination of the mind. We have to be very precise and clear as to what is the source of our imagination. Is the imagination that is something temporary, has a short shelf life. And therefore, we understand from the teachings of the sages that when the soul imagines, it imagines eternality, transcendental love, full of joy. That is the imagination of the soul. And that's the nation that we should be all trying to create within ourselves. Nation building is not something that happens outside. Dear beautiful souls, please understand that the real nation building starts with the imagination of the soul. The infinite possibilities, the possibilities of pure, unconditional, eternal spiritual love. That is the real imagination. And that is where nation building begins.
So going back to what my question before, and it's interesting, these politicians who are doing all this warmongering and with their imaginations creating these wars that really most of us really care nothing about, but the TV just perpetuates and plays this stuff and programs us in our minds to be divided against each other and us to get deeper into our identities. Back in 2016, like I never saw before, when Trump came into play, that family members were starting to disassociate and cut each other off because of certain viewpoints. What is with all this woke culture and all this programming? What do you think about American culture and all this propaganda and programming, and how it's just seeming to divide us so we can be conquered and controlled? Does that make sense?
Programming is it's a universal phenomena. The more the humans who are on this planet can be programmed, it's easier to predict where things will go, and especially powerful people in the world. They would like to see their fingerprints in every aspect of our lives. And so it helps with the programming that the society is putting us through. And it's not so obvious to most people, but it is obvious to those who are introspective sages, people who are deep thinkers, people who are able to see far about where things are going in society today. Because where it is going now is a reflection of our consciousness. It is not just some random changes that are happening in the world. It's very systematic, it's very well programmed. And we living entities, we humans have a right to dive deep into our psyche, dive deep into ourselves and find our truth and our answers so we can avoid the societal programming, the institutional programming. And we can always remain aloof. A lotus grows in muddy waters. So it doesn't matter how filthy or dirty the place is. If our very nature of who we are is pure and beautiful, no matter where we are, we're going to blossom into these beautiful flowers. And this is being taught in these ancient monasteries where they teach people how to cultivate the inner essence. Just as when you squeeze an orange, doesn't matter how hard you squeeze, you're going to get an orange juice. You're not going to get something else out of an orange. So what is our essence that we hold inside? When times get hard, we will still come with our pure essence, our character of who we truly are. So this is what is being taught. To think outside of the box, outside of the narrative, outside of the programming that we are subjected to every single day. We turn on our phone, our TVs.
The Bhagavad Gita is an interesting story that talks about fighting yet surrendering. That's a question that I've had for myself, like since recently. I actually got pretty caught up into all the politics for a while and got super interested and went on a deep dive down this rabbit hole that seems to go on and on and on. And it helped me understand a lot of stuff. I'm someone who's never interested in politics and more interested in movies. And I started to see this as quite the movie, and that's why it was so appealing to me. It was very entertaining. It's quite the show. The Bhagavad Gita talks about it's this war. So this main character Arjuna, he's fighting, and basically God tells him that he must fulfill his purpose, which is being a warrior and fight and kill. And surrendering at the same time. How do we go about pertaining to this stuff that we're talking about now and fight yet surrender, as in, so we're not fighting our friends and our family and even these people who are in charge. Ultimately, when it comes to the soul, we don't want to fight them either, but this ego inside of us, I mean, sometimes I feel like these people deserve to die. What do you think about that?
We have to fight. There is no doubt about that. We live in a world that is a struggle for existence because the very nature of matter is that it decays, it gets old, it vanishes. And we are made of matter. The 5 elements that this human body consists of is earth, water, fire, air, and ether. This is what this human body consists of. And all of the components of this human body is going to decay, is going to fall apart, is going to go back into nature in the course of time. So our fight to maintain this body, to fight for territory for this body, fight to make this body continue to look beautiful and not grow old. All of these fights that we have in society, I mean, look at the cosmetic companies. They're making billions of dollars. They're trying to fight aging. Will they succeed? Success is not on their side, but will they succeed to get people to buy their products and at least make an effort? Yes. So every aspect of our life, we will notice that someone is using some aspect of our existence to figure out a way to monetize it. And we fall prey and victim to that propaganda. So as we all understand, there is this ancient text called the Gita that Dr. King was quite fond of. And the Gita is a dialogue between 2 friends on a battlefield. And that battlefield is the life that we live. And how to live in this battlefield and how to thrive on this battlefield is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. So the real fight that we need to fight, and not each other, is the fight of lust, anger, greed, envy, jealousy, madness, illusion. These are formidable opponents that we are up against. And this is what we have to fight. We understand that from lust, if we don't control lust, from lust anger arises. From anger, delusion of memory. We're not able to think properly. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And intelligence is our last fort. It is the last fort that we can stand behind for safety and protection. And when intelligence is gone, the game is over. You have lost. So therefore, society needs to use their intelligence, to question everything, to really, really find your own personal, individual truth. Once you find your truth, you'll find the absolute truth. Because everything we see in this world, with our 5 sensory faculties, with the sense of sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing, everything we experience in this world is subjective. It's subjective to our own individual consciousness. And there will come a time when we use our intelligence, we will be able to see things more objectively. And eventually, when we see the world with the eyes of our heart, we will be able to see the absolute truth. So you beautiful souls out there, try to see the world with the eyes of your heart so you can see the absolute truth.